DevOps Shorts, the show to listen to when your DevOps hurts. And even when you're going strong, it's short and sweet, so come along.
Hello, folks, and welcome to DevOps Shorts, the show where we invite wonderful human beings to have a lightning-fast conversation about devs, ops, and other mythical creatures. The show where each episode only lasts 15 minutes and where we are focused around three main questions. So it's short and sweet. Why? Well, because if there's one thing we know, it's that great delivery comes in small batches. And our guest for tonight is Manuel Pais, a Lisbon-born, Madrid-based DevOps consultant and trainer, co-author of Team Topologies, the book about organizing business and technology teams for fast flow. How are you today, Manuel?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I think it's a great idea to do this show. And yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. I'm happy to finally have you. As we discussed before the show, I've been referencing your work for a number of years in my trainings, and it's great to finally be talking. So without further ado, let's jump straight into our three core questions. And the first question is this: why do you love information technology? You see, I have this naive assumption that you love what you do. I may be wrong, I may be right, but you know the truth, and I want you to tell me that truth. So I'm setting the timer for the question right now, and go. Tell me.
Okay. Feeling the pressure now. So I would say you're half right, half wrong. The passion really came quite late compared to, I started working in IT in 2000, so about 20 years now.
Same here.
Sorry?
I'm saying same here.
Yeah.
Don't mind me.
So it went quite fast. But I mean, I always enjoyed, obviously, having this ability to create and to kind of materialize ideas through software. That has always been very kind of liberating. So I always enjoyed it, but kind of this, passion for IT and kind of the ways of working in IT only came later. I think kind of one of the key moments was in when the continuous delivery book came out from Jez Humble and Dave Farley. And the same year or the year after, I attended a workshop at QCon London with Jez Humble and Sam Newman. And I had already had roles in development, in release and build engineering, and also testing. And what they were talking about for me was like putting all the pieces together. And I had never thought about it like that. So I was hearing, and obviously there's tooling involved and practices, but in my mind was just, right, this is putting all these different teams working together on the same kind of pipeline, essentially, to deliver things, because I had seen how fractured organizations I worked with were, and how I was also part of that, being, I was just a developer. I only worried about how do I create this Java program, and or I had been the on the build engineering part, and I wasn't really as open as probably I should have been around the needs of different other teams in the organization. And so continuous delivery was like, right, this all makes sense. And I think the passion came from starting to see, then I did consulting around continuous delivery for several years after that, and how it always came down to that. No matter how important the tools were, you always had to look at the teams and what are the problems between teams that are actually impeding the organization to have better capabilities and delivering faster with better quality. And was often that problems in how teams are set up and how they sometimes have incentives that are not aligned to other teams' incentives. And so that's, I think, what kind of triggered the passion to be able to see, and then talk to these teams and just either through continuous delivery or DevOps or now the team topologies, how can they actually do their work in a more satisfactory way with less conflicts, with less problems, because they start moving the same direction.
Okay, good. We still have a little bit of time left over from this question. Now, you're putting me in a hard place because I feel like you've answered the second question while answering the first one. You'll see in a moment why. Because the second question is actually about the DevOps aha moment. You know, in DevOps handbook, each of the authors described their DevOps aha moment, that moment in their life that made them understand that the way things currently work in IT sucks, but there is a better way, right? And you told about that workshop with Jazz and Sam, and that was probably the DevOps moment for you, wasn't it?
I would say there have actually been multiple DevOps aha moments, like for many people. That one with the continuous delivery and what it meant was surely kind of the start of that journey around DevOps as well. But there were different moments. I remember the first DevOps days I went to in 2011. There was another aha moment where I saw, oh, okay, so we have some developers and mostly ops folks, but we had a mix, and they were actually, and they were doing open spaces, which was new to me, and they were, just discussing together the problems that were common to them. And also at that moment was also kind of, for me, revolutionary in some aspects of the tooling that was coming up. So it was the first time I heard about Vagrant and what you could do with that. I was introduced to Puppet and Chef at that point too. And I think there's a lot of debate around tooling, right? Some people will say, well, tooling is the last thing that, because it doesn't change the culture, and you need to start there. And other people say, no, with the tooling, you can actually get people to work better together. And I think it depends as well on kind of what kind of tooling it is, how it affects. And I think at that moment, at least for me, those tools were revolutionary in the sense of we can work in a very different way. So together with the continuous delivery kind of discovery, just seeing, okay, I can use Vagrant, I can create test environments in a much easier, automated way. I can get rid of, hopefully, static environments and all these wait times on all this resource, competing for resources to test, to try things, and the same for Puppet and other tools. So that was another aha moment. And then the next, I would say, was the Phoenix project, when I read the book, and then I interviewed Gene Kim for InfoQ. And so the Phoenix project, I think, like many people, when I read it, it's like, this is my story. How did you? I didn't know Jim was hiding in my office when these things were happening, or similar things. And obviously, many people had the same reaction, and that's why the book is so good, and so meaningful. But also, kind of looking at how do you address many of those problems of the silos, and just human beings being human and having conflict sometimes, and having different incentives. And so how you need to think about those aspects when if you're really trying to be a high performing software delivery and operations organization, then it's definitely not just part of it's the tools, part of it is the practices, and part of it is, as we know, the people, and how do you actually promote the right kind of behaviors and incentives. So that was another moment. And perhaps the last moment was I met Matthew Skelton, the co-author of the book Team Topologies, I think in 2015 at QCon London. And then I worked with him in many different clients, but especially he was starting talking about DevOps topologies. So this website he had just created in the blog post around how can we set up teams in different ways. And there is no 100% right way for DevOps.
This is your gong. This is your gong.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manuel. A lot of moments, a lot of stories. I love that.
Yeah.
And let's go straight to the next question, which is for me the most exciting one of the three, because I like to call myself a software delivery futurist, and this question is about the future. So what I'm asking you here is, what do you think is next for DevOps and the IT industry in general? This is your chance to look into the future. You decide how far ahead to look. You can talk about tomorrow when we all go out of the lockdown, or you can talk about what happens in a year from now, 5, 10, 20 years. Go wild, whatever you think is the most exciting thing that's going to happen. And we're starting now.
Okay. I'm not as much of a futurist, perhaps as you, but I do have some ideas of what's things that I believe are going to change. And obviously the current situation with the COVID-19, remote first, and you know, a lot more people working remotely is a reality now, and I don't think we're going to go back to what it was before the pandemic. So definitely that's kind of what I see the future in different ways in how teams work together. I know a lot of tooling that I expect is going to come out of this. I think we're still scratching the surface of, you know, which tooling could help us be more effective working remotely. But essentially, in kind of in cultural terms, I think all the organizations that had traditionally this kind of power-oriented culture with, you know, command and control and trying to you know, guide teams to produce features or to produce outputs, and focusing too much on that. I think those organizations, most of them are not going to survive, simply because you cannot kind of shift and lift that kind of approach to remote. You can't just say, well, now I'm going to control how many hours you're going to be online, or you know, what time did you send this email, and things like this. You know, this kind of micromanagement is not going to cut it for remote first. And so this is definitely something I'm super curious. We're doing some work also around that, around remote first team interactions with team topologies. So we want to publish a free workbook to kind of help teams understand not just how they work internally, but with other teams, because I think that's more of a challenge. Everything's a challenge, but inter-team communication is a big challenge. And I think also related to that, we're going to start to dig deeper into what really are autonomous teams. So we talk about autonomous teams in Agile, in cross-functional teams, and so on, but we often don't really characterize that enough. You know, how do you give autonomy to a team, and how do you give them a purpose? And so I think we have to dig much deeper into how teams are have autonomy around the business, not just the technology and the software part, but to be truly autonomous, they need to have a stake in the business as well. So I think we'll see evolution around that. I don't know the time frame. Also related to that and to remote first context, and this is a bit outside IT, but because I have two small kids, one is 3, the other is 5. I'm definitely looking forward to changes in our education system, because I think that's also something that's not going to stay the same, that we go back to just full classroom type of education in most countries. I think with now in Portugal, for example, they have school on TV. So all the kids of the same have a schedule for their grade, and they can watch the lecture on TV, but obviously with video available, all sorts of content available on the internet. I think we're going to start to see more kind of flipped classroom, where instead of lecturing, we're asking people or students to learn by themselves with videos and content available, and use the time with the teachers to discuss, to go deeper, rather than just listening passively.
Manuel, here's your gong. the gong just went off, so I could listen to you for another 15 minutes, or even half an hour, or even a whole hour. But because you're telling interesting stuff, but we're out of time. It's short and sweet. Remember, it was fun talking to you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I like the format, and yeah, it was fun.
Short and sweet. Thank you for listening and watch out for new episodes of DevOps Shorts.